Welcome back to another Pearl Lemon Legal YouTube video. Today we're going to be talking about how to write a brief. Now this might seem more relevant to law students or even candidate attorneys or solicitors that are in the early parts of their journey. However, it can give you, as the layman watching, a little bit of insight into what goes into a brief and what in fact it is. So first thing to understand is, what's the purpose of a brief? Well, it's in the name. It should be brief, succinct. It should be a summary of a case detailing what happened, the legal aspects of the case, what went into the decision, and that sort of thing. Now, it is often said, and quite ironically so, that a brief never seems to be brief. And that is true enough, although the best briefs are as succinct as possible. They're not repetitive, they get to the point, and the purpose is for you as the person drafting it, that you remember the facts and details of the case, but then also for you as someone that's reading someone else's brief, you've got a quick insight and overview of what happened in a case. We're now going to discuss the different elements of a brief and how to make sure you get them right. So the first would be the caption. It should begin with the case name, the court that decided the case, when it was decided, and the page that it would appear on in the case book. So different cases appear in different case books. The next thing would be the case facts. So you want to cover the details of what happened. This is where legal principles are defined, how those legal principles arose, what the situations were, the scenarios. You'll want to include only the facts that are relevant. If the facts are not related to the case or what actually happened in the case, exclude them. If you're not sure how to include it, it will be whether or not it was in fact relevant to the case's outcome. The color of the car in an injury or personal injury case in a car accident is not necessarily relevant. Now, the next thing that you'll include in your brief is a timeline, a sequence of events from a legal standpoint. So that will be when the case was filed by the plaintiff, the procedural history, so when it first appeared in court, when the first opinion was given. If it was a trial court opinion, then you will identify the type of legal action that was brought. If it's an appellate court action, then you'll also describe how the trial court and the lower appellate court decided the case and why they decided that case. So that helps you or the reader to understand why the case was appealed, what grounds they appealed it on, and so forth. The next thing that you'll include will be the legal issues. So at this point, you're describing your legal opinion. You'll state the factual and legal questions that the court had to make a determination on. And to analyze the case properly, you'll have to break it down into its different parts. Now, once you've identified the different legal issues or legal questions, you then get to something called the holding. And in the holding, you answer each of those questions. Now, the answer to each of those questions might be brief, in the form of a yes or no, or that was correct or that was incorrect. And it will be followed by a slightly more in-depth answer of a sentence or two to explain the legal principle and why the court made either decision. So the next section is the court's rationale. So it might have seemed like I jumped the gun a bit, but in this section, you're going to give why the court came to the conclusion it did on each of the legal issues. You want to be able to analyze the court's reasoning, and you want to be able to take that reasoning and apply it to a different situation. And the last aspect of your legal brief would be the final disposition. So in whose favor did the courts decide? What was the remedy? Was a payment made? Was a legal obligation enforced? What was the result of the case, basically? And then if it was an appeal, did the court confirm or reject the lower court's decision? Did it reverse it? Did it go to a further hearing? these are all things that you'll find in your final disposition. And then as a last tip, you might want to consider other opinions. This just helps you to analyze maybe the case better. Find a similar case where a different conclusion was reached and try to see why that happened. And this is probably where you start for the first time to better understand the law and how it's applied. All right, there you have it. That is how to write a brief. If you've got any more questions or you ever need a brief written, you know who to speak to. So if you enjoyed that, please do like and subscribe, and we'll see you soon on our next video.